Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about loops. Now, before we get too deep into the episode, if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure you guys hit that like button. Also, if you're new around here and you guys want to see some more Roblox scripting videos, hit the subscribe button and turn those post notifications on. Additionally, I have a Patreon. If you guys would like to support me, link down below in the description. Go check it out. We also have a public Discord. If you guys would like to join, ask your questions in there, or help other people, link down below in the description to that as well. With that being said, let's get into it. So, of course, resuming from last time, we just left off at if statements and conditional programming in Lua. Now, you might not know what loops are. Loops are really good for repeating code multiple times. It's an excellent way of actually organizing your code and also preventing your code from needing to be larger than it actually needs to be. And it's also a really good way of optimizing your code as well. Sometimes people don't use loops when they actually could, and your code could go from like 5 lines to 25 depending on how you actually do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear a few things from this file. All we're going to leave here is the choose_brick_color function. Let's start off by actually going over what a for loop is. There's multiple loops, and the first one we're going to be going over is the for loop. So to create a for loop, you literally type out for. Then we're going to create a variable. We can name the variable anything we want. We can name it value, we can name it number, we can name it int, whatever we want to name it. Let's just go ahead and call it number. Now we're going to say the variable is equal to, and then whatever we actually want to start the loop at. So for the most part, I would say people usually start at 0, and that's what we're going to do. Then we're going to use comma, and then we're going to say what the loop should stop at. So how many times do we want it to run? Do we want it to run 5 times? Do we want it to run 10 times? 20 times, or however many times we want it to run. Let's just say we want it to run 5 times. So we're going to write 5. And then how much do we want to increase the number variable by every single time the for loop runs? So if we say 1, then this will run 5 times. If we said 4, this should only run 1 time. And if we said 5, it should only run 1 time as well. Let's just say 1. And then the final thing that you need to do is type do. And then click enter, and here we go. Inside of here, we can enter our code block. So for right now, to test this out, let's actually print out what the number is and what this is going to do. This loop is going to start once we start our game. It's going to run, it's going to print the number once, and then it's actually going to increase the number. Then it'll do it again, and it'll do that until number equals 5. So let's actually run the game and see this in action. And as we can see, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we can stop our game, and I was actually a little bit wrong. This actually ran 6 times because we started at 0. So if we wanted to only run 5 times, we would start at 1. Now remember, the third number is how much it increases by every single time. So let's actually adjust this to 2 and see how many times it runs. Now let's start our game. So as we can see, it actually only did run 3 times. The reason that it only ran 3 times is because every single time the loop runs, number is increased by 2, and the max that number can be is 5. Although it didn't actually hit 5, if it would have ran again, number would have been 6, which is higher than 5, so that's why the loop stops before then. Now we can also decrease the number, so we could actually say -1, and then we should set the maximum loop to actually like -5, and then we can start it. So as we can see, it went from 0 all the way down to -5. Basically the opposite of what we did at the first part. Now, for loops are extremely common. I would say for loops are the most common loops that I use when I program. I would say 99% of the time you're going to be using a for loop, and it also will not look like this for loop here. There's actually a different way to create for loops, and I'll show you that now. So when I show you this for loop, it will definitely be confusing to you. The thing is that it is a little bit advanced, but you're definitely going to want to know this and probably try to relearn it a little bit later on. Once you get used to the actual usage of loops, then you're definitely going to want to come back to this and really understand it, but it's definitely worth me trying to explain it to you now. So what I did right here is I just made an array list. You're also not going to know what this is, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to get a loop, and it's going to go through every single value in this list. So high is one value, I'm is one value, and cool is another value. They're all within this list. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do for underscore message in pairs array do. And now we're going to print message and start the game. And now as we can see, hi, I'm cool. All of these were all printed out, and they were all printed out within this for loop. So now let's explain how this loop actually works. As we can see, this loop is completely different than this for loop down here. So what the underscore actually represents is it represents the number of times that it has looped through the pairs. So we're going to go ahead and print out the underscore so that we can actually see. And as we can see, 1, hi, 2, I'm, 3, cool. So the underscore is similar to number basically. Remember when we printed out number, every single time we printed out number, the number actually increased as it went through the loop. The underscore is the amount of times that the loop has gone through. Message is actually the value in pairs. Pairs is actually a function which is used within for loops. What it does is it actually allows for loops to go through an element of an array or dictionary without actually needing to set a starting or end point. So rather than having to set 5 or 0, we're actually using pairs to help us with this. Now, I honestly think going any deeper into this for loop might be more confusing than it is helpful, so I think I'll actually make a separate video on sort of advanced for loops, as I would call this one, because it does require a little bit of additional knowledge. You're really going to want to know the in-depth details of what pairs are. There's also pairs. We also need to know what a list or an array or a dictionary is. There's a lot of context that we're not really providing in this video, and that's because I simply don't want to cause more confusion, but I also did feel that it was necessary for me to show you this is advanced for loop because this is the most common sort of loop that you're likely going to be using, and it is so helpful. Anyways, let's now go to a while loop. So we're actually going to make a local variable, and we're going to call it cookies, and we're going to set that variable to 5. And now what we're going to say is while cookies are greater than 0, do. And now inside of this code block, we can do whatever we want. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to print cookies. And what we're also going to do is we're actually going to take a cookie every single time this while loop runs. So we're going to say cookies equals cookies minus 1. And also before we start, let's go ahead and actually comment out this for loop right here. And now let's go ahead and start. And as we can see, it went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So what we do is we set a variable before actually using the loop. Obviously, we set cookies to 5. And what we're saying is while cookies is greater than 0, do something. So another way to kind of look at this, if you're not understanding maybe from the variable side of things, we could say while 5 is greater than 0. But obviously we can't do like 5 equals 5 minus 1 because that's just not going to work. That's not a variable, that's an actual number. So we're using a variable, and the reason that we're using a variable is so that we can actually subtract from the variable inside of the actual loop. If we don't subtract, then this loop will go on forever, and that's not something you want to do. Now, not only can we use integers or numbers in a while loop, we can also use booleans. So we can actually say local has cookie, which is a boolean, and we can set this to true. We can say while has cookie equals true, do. And now while has cookie is true, it's going to do something. Now what we're going to do is we're going to print cookies, and every single time this loop runs, we're actually going to remove a cookie. And now let's use an if statement. We're going to say if cookies equals 0, then has cookie equals false. So we're going to print the amount of cookies that we have, then we're going to subtract 1 every single time this loop runs. And then we're going to check how many cookies we have. And if we have 0 cookies, then we're actually going to set the has cookie variable to false because we don't have cookies anymore. So let's go ahead and start this up. And as we can see, we went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then once we hit 0 cookies, the loop actually stopped. Now, one thing that you want to be cautious of when using a while loop is you can actually create an unlimited loop which will run forever. So imagine if we have a while loop which will always run until cookies equals false. Imagine that we never made cookies false ever. So if we never made cookies false, this would actually run forever. Now, if we look at how fast the script's actually running, we can actually sort of tell the amount of time based on the output from the prior script running. So we can see at 21, 19, 15, 060, 5 was printed. And then we could see 21, 19, 15, 061, 4 was printed. And then we can see at the exact same time, 4, 3, 2, and 1 were all printed at the exact same time. So this loop runs in like milliseconds. Like, it runs so fast, so many times per second, it's insane. So imagine if this was running an unlimited amount of times per second and never stopped. This would quite literally crash your game. Now, the way to actually prevent this from crashing is to use a wait. So what this will do is it'll actually make the loop wait 2 seconds before looping again. So we can actually test this out now, and we can see 5 was printed, 4 was printed, 3 was printed, and every single time we're waiting about 2 seconds before it's actually printed. And as we can see, it's now going into the negatives, and it's never stopping. It just keeps on going. Luckily, since we're adding a delay to the loop, it's not crashing your game or crashing your PC because we're making it wait 2 seconds between every single time it runs. So if you're brand new to using while loops and you do actually forget to sort of stop the loop, I would definitely recommend that you use the wait function so that it does not cause any really game-breaking issues. Now, let's also comment this out, and now let's learn about a repeat loop. All right, so remember the cookies variable that we have up top? We set that to 5. Let's actually change that and let's set that to 0. So now we're going to create a repeat loop by typing out repeat, then hitting enter, and we can see we now have a code block, and we also have something called until. So now inside of this code block, we are going to say cookies equals cookies plus 1. And then we're also going to print cookies. Now with the until, what this means is this is basically where you define when the loop will actually stop. So we're going to say until cookies equals 5. So this should be pretty easy to understand. What this is going to do is it's going to repeat whatever's in this code block until whatever we define down here. So we're going to repeat until cookies equals 5. Now let's go ahead and start it. And as we can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once cookies hit 5, the loop actually stopped. Now, of course, we can do the exact same thing with how we did with the while loop earlier. We don't have to use numbers. We can also use a Boolean, and we can say until has cookie equals false. We can also, instead of saying false, we could even say not has cookies, because remember, for Booleans, you can do not. Instead of saying not equal to true or equal to false, you can say not. This is the equivalent of saying has cookies equals false. We also could literally just say until has cookie, because this means has cookie equals true. But of course, we want to make sure that it's false because it's already set to true. Until has cookies equal to false. And now what we're going to do is we're going to say if cookies equals 5, then has cookie equals false. So I know this is actually a little bit wrong. We should actually probably change this expression up a little bit. We should rename this. We should set this value to false, and then once it actually equals 1, we could probably set it to true, but that's okay. We're just going to do this for a demo. So now what's going to happen? It's basically going to be the exact same thing that happened in the while loop earlier. This code block is going to repeat until has cookie actually equals false. Now has cookie will equal false when cookies equals 5. So every single time it's going to add a cookie to cookies. It's going to print the amount of cookies that we have, and then it's going to check how many cookies we have, and if it equals 5, then we're going to set has cookies to false, and then the repeat loop should actually stop. So let's go ahead and start the game. And as we can see, that's exactly what happened. Now, when using loops, 90% of the time what we're doing is we're actually setting a condition for when the loop stops. There's also a way to stop the loop without it actually reaching the initial condition that we set for it. So for right now, we're going to keep running this loop until has cookie equals false. What if we never set has cookie to equal false? Well, that's actually okay. What we could do is we can say once we reach cookies equals 5, instead of setting has cookies to false, effectively breaking the loop, we can actually just type in break. And now we can start the game, and we can see that once it equaled 5, the loop actually completely stopped, and that's because of the break right here. So this would break literally every single type of loop. Let's go ahead and stop our game. Let's comment out this loop right here, and let's look at our for loop that we worked on at first. Let's actually make that a positive one, and now this loop should run until 5. Let's actually make an if statement. So if number equals 2, then break. Let's also add a print statement to this and print out the number and then start the loop. And as we can see, it went 0, 1, 2, and then broke. Now, let's actually remove that, and then let's start it again. And as we can see, without that break, it runs to 5 like it should. Now, you might be thinking, why would I even use break? Well, once again, I'm going to show you where I commonly use break at in the advanced for loop. So, imagine that I'm looking through an array, and I'm trying to find something very specific, like a specific player name or a specific player property value. There's a couple of different things that we would look for, but let's just say that I'm looking for this word specifically, or this entry specifically. So, we're going to say, if message equals I'm, then break. And then we can start this, and then we can see hi, I'm, and then the loop broke. Now, usually with inside of here, I would actually do something like set a variable or return some data or do a couple of different things, but that would be a little bit more complex. This is definitely, though, where I commonly use the break at. For the most part, like I said, this is the only loop that you're really going to be using 90% of the time anyways, so this is the one that you'll get most familiar with. But of course, like I said, I will make another advanced video on the advanced for loop because it is a little bit more complex. Now, let's uncomment the original for loop and let's use this in our game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of our past loops, and I'll leave the for loop for right now. And what we're going to do is we are going to connect the part to a touched event. So we're going to do part.touch connect, and then once we connect it, we're actually going to local function damage player, and we are going to take whoever touched it. So now we're going to call the function damaged player, and there we go. Oh, we actually need to really initialize the function, so there we go. And then I spelled it wrong. Okay, cool. So now when this part is touched, and remember, if we go into jumps, we are actually working on the jump part right here. So this is a script. So part is equal to script.parent, which is equal to jump right here. And what we're saying is once the part touched, we are going to connect it to this function right here. And what we're passing into it is the part touched. So now we're going to say local humanoid equals touch.parent, find first child humanoid. So this is going to find the player's humanoid. And then we're going to say if humanoid then, and let's actually insert a loop inside of here. So we're going to say for number equals 0 until 5. And we're going to increase it by 1 every single time. We're going to print the number. We'll also wait 1 second. And actually, you know what? We're going to make this a little bit different. So we're actually going to increase the number by 5 every time. We will set it to 95. We're going to print the number. We're going to wait. And then what we're going to do is we are going to set the humanoid's health to humanoid.health minus number. And then let's actually print the player's health. So print humanoid.health. So what this is going to do is every single time it runs, it's going to print the number that the loop is currently at. It's going to wait 1 second, and then it's actually going to set the player's health to the player health minus the number. Now remember, the number increases by 5 every single time. So at first it's going to take away 5 health, then it's going to take away 10 health, then it's going to take 15 health, and it's going to keep increasing by 5 every single time the loop runs. And then every single time it takes some health away, it's going to print out the health. So we're going to go ahead and start it, and boom, we step on it. It starts at 0. Then it goes up by 5, then it goes up by 10, 15, 20. And as we can see, every single time, health was being taken away from the player. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that is how loops work in Roblox, and that's actually the different types of loops. Hopefully this video did help you guys out. If you guys did learn something new, make sure you guys smash the like button, and also hit the subscribe button if you're brand new around here and you guys want to see more Roblox development videos. I also have a Patreon if you guys would like to support me, link down below in the description. Go check it out. We also have a Discord if you guys would like to ask your questions or help other people, link down below in the description to that as well. If you guys also have any questions or feedback, leave in the comment section down below. Anyways, hopefully you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.